Hey guys, welcome back to the Burbstead. I'm Jess and I have a super fun project for you tonight. I have been in the process of seed starting and doing all kinds of make-readies for spring and getting into the groove for that season, but I realized that I hadn't really set aside anything just for this period of time between now and my last frost date. Everything I've been doing has been focused on frost date, post frost date. So seed starts to be able to go out then, or planning on seeds that I will direct sow when I get there. And I haven't planned for anything in between. And so I thought this would be a really fun opportunity to come up with a really inexpensive project to be able to have some fresh things in my house and, you know, kind of bringing in that spring vibe here for the next 6 to 8 weeks while we're still in kind of the end of winter, first part of spring still. So this project should cost you less than $25 and I'm really excited about it. So we're gonna jump right in and get going on it. Here we're going to turn our shopping bag over and we're going to take our scissors and we're going to make some small snips in the bottom of the bag. You want it to look like this when you get done. Continue doing this every 3 to 4 inches across the bottom of the bag. Place your bag on the tote lid and then fill with potting soil. These large blue bags can fit 1 to 2 cubic feet of potting soil. The more potting soil that you put in, the deeper your root system will be able to grow, but it will also be heavier, so keep that in mind. Once you have your potting soil in, you'll need to break up any large pieces and make sure that your potting soil is nice and light and fluffy. I do this with my hands, but you could also do this with a small rake or hand shovel. The point is to make sure that the potting soil is all even consistency and settled in the bag the way that you would like it. The next step after your potting soil is set is to water it in. It may seem a little counterintuitive to water potting soil with nothing in it, but the goal here is to be able to have the potting soil stick together like brownie mix, but also not drip water when you squeeze it. Now we're finally ready to plant some seeds, and the first seeds are going to be early scarlet globe radishes. Now these should come up to maturity very quickly and will likely be the very first seeds that you see have any sort of growth on them. These seeds are small, so keep that in mind, and what we're going to do is poke little holes just barely 1/4 of an inch deep, and then in each hole we're going to plant 2 seeds. I know that seems like a lot. We would normally think to only plant 1, but in case one of them doesn't end up growing, then we have an extra one to make sure that we actually get the radishes that we want. If we end up with too many, we can come back in and thin out the other one that's not quite as strong, or maybe is coming up second, so then that way we have really strong radishes. Once you have them planted, then all you have to do is just gently tap them in and make sure that they're settled and won't move. The next seeds that we're going to plant are for ruby red leaf lettuce. They're beautiful and tasty, but we're going to plant these just a little bit differently than we did with our radishes. With these seeds, we are going to make a small trench, and then we're going to scatter them in that trench so then that way they can come up together in small clumps. This works really well if you're wanting to plant microgreens or if you're wanting to harvest in a cut and come again fashion. If you decide that you want to be able to have heads, you can plant them the same way that you planted the radishes, or you can thin them more generously when they start to come up. I personally like to use lettuces as a cut and come again variety, and that way I can harvest them when they're really small if I'm wanting microgreens to go in a sandwich. Once your seeds are planted, go ahead and move the soil that you had moved away in the sides for the trench back over the top and lightly press in. This will make sure that the seeds have good contact with the soil and that they'll be good and covered and ready to germinate. Next, we are going to plant sorrel. If you've never had sorrel before, it has a slightly bitter taste and is sometimes compared to a Granny Smith apple with how tart it can be. Some people really enjoy it and some people really don't care for it. It's kind of like cilantro. You either like it or you don't, but it grows really easy, is high in vitamins and nutrients, and for me, my bunnies will like it. If you are not a fan of sorrel, you could also grow arugula just as easily with this same method. Sorrel has very small seeds, and in this case, rather than digging a trench or covering them over, I'm packing the soil down lightly, and the intent is that I will scatter the seeds over the top of the soil, and then I will lightly press in, so that way the seed has enough contact with the soil so they can germinate. When seeds are this small, sometimes it's easier to do it this way than to bury them. Also, this is another reason why we water the soil in advance, so that way we could make sure that we wouldn't wash the seeds away after we've planted them because they are so small. As a note and a general rule of thumb, the goal with seed starting is to sow the seed about twice as deep as the seed is in size. This way we make sure that the seed has proper coverage, but when they're this tiny, there's not really a good way to cover them without planting them too deeply. So this is another reason why we're just going ahead and planting them on the surface and gently pressing them in. Our next variety is prize head leaf lettuce. This one makes a beautiful head if you decided that you wanted to plant them to grow in that shape. I still find it easiest to do the trenching and focus in on a cut and come again type of harvesting. So I'm going to do that again here, and I'm going to do that with my next lettuce that comes up as well. So for review, we're just going to gently trench about a 1/4 inch down, and then we'll scatter the seeds in the trench and cover it back over lightly. Next variety of seeds that we're going to plant is nasturtiums. This is a flower, and it will take a little bit longer than your lettuces and radishes to come up, but don't worry, in about 10 days you'll see a seedling start to emerge, and they have very pretty seedlings, probably some of my favorites. Both the leaves and the flowers on this particular plant are edible. They have a bit of a spicy flavor that may remind you of arugula. They're very easy to grow, and they can take over a pot pretty easily, so if you decide that you want to keep this project long term, you may find it to be a good idea to move the nasturtiums into their own pot at a later date, so that way other plants around them have more time and more space to be able to expand and grow. For our cress, we are going to plant this with a trench style planting, just like we did with our lettuces. The seeds on this are very similar sized and look very similar to those as well. So same principle applies here. Plant your tag, make a small trench, and drop your seeds in and fluff the soil over the top. Now we're going to plant fennel. Fennel is going to be planted in the same method that our radishes were. The seeds are similar size and they have kind of a licorice scent to them. The plant itself also has that same licorice type flavor. It's one of my favorites. I love to use it in tuna salad, which is a little bit unexpected, but with the dill it goes wonderfully together. It also works really well in standard salads, which is why we're incorporating it in our bag today, and it's relatively easy to grow. It will come up in about a week, and then you should see full maturity at about 50 to 55 days. Our next item is Tokyo Long White Bunching Onions. These are going to be very similar to your scallions that you can find at the grocery store, that you can use the tops all the way down to almost the roots. The nice thing about these is if you do harvest them, you can go ahead and replant the bulb part of it, and then it will re-sprout and grow again. So they turn out to be a really, really great value, and they're very easy to grow. So I highly recommend that you give them a shot trying them rather than buying them from the store the next time you have the opportunity. And my gardener seeds that I'm showing you today are only 99 cents a package, and they can get to you in about a week. These are very easy to grow in containers. They're also great to grow in an in-ground garden. I'm doing a very shallow trench here and just lightly covering the soil like I've done with the lettuces. This seed is our second edible flower in this bag. This is borage, and it is a pollinator bomb. Pollinators absolutely love this particular plant. The little light blue flowers are really pretty. They're also edible, as well as the leaves. The plant itself will have a slight cucumber taste and is very refreshing. You can use it in beverages as well as salads. I personally think that it tastes great to have the little bitty flowers frozen in ice cubes and dropped into lemonade. These seeds are also a little bit larger, not as large as our nasturtiums, but slightly larger. So we are doing the poke method by planting 2 seeds per hole. This brings us to our last variety today, and we are doing Tiny Tim tomatoes. Yes, you can actually get a tomato to go from seed to full-grown mature plant and putting on fruit in 60 days. This particular variety is a fast grower. It is perfect for containers because it doesn't get very large, and we're not going to plant very many of them because it does put off a lot of tomatoes for such a small plant. We're going to use the poke method that we've used with our nasturtiums, our borage, and our radishes, and just plant about 2 seeds per hole. These seeds are very tiny. They are smaller than your standard tomato plants. So be sure that you don't poke the holes too deep, otherwise the seeds may struggle to be able to germinate and get to the surface to find sunlight. So that's it, you guys. It's really simple. This should be able to be completed in about an hour. And the only thing that you need to have now going forward to be successful is you need to make sure that once your little seedlings sprout, that you are ready to water them. Get them good and watered and keep them moist until they've really, really rooted in. I would recommend not trying to move this too much until they have set and rooted in, so then that way you don't disrupt any of your seeds in the meantime and have some problems with your roots separating until they've really had a chance to form a root ball. The next thing that you're going to need is you're going to want to make sure that you invest in either a grow light or find the sunniest spot that you can in your house. Or you can put it outside if you want to. If you put it outside and it's cold in your area, I would recommend waiting on starting the flowers and the onions and the tomatoes because they're going to be a little bit warmer weather and they may struggle with some of the cold depending on what your temps are right now. If you want to invest in a grow light, I will put a link up in one of the cards above at the top of the screen, so then that way you can see a video that I recently did talking about an entry-level grow light versus more of an investment grade grow light. So then that way you get kind of an idea of what to look for if you want to be able to keep this indoors and you don't have a super sunny spot in your house. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was fun, and I hope you try it. Let me know what you decide, what works for you, what doesn't, if you do all of these varieties or if you do something else. I want to hear about what your experiences are, and I want to see pictures. If you can tag me in pictures on Instagram, you can hit me at the Burbstead on Instagram, and I'll be super excited to see how this turns out for you guys. So that's all I've got for you tonight, and I hope to see you very soon. Bye.